people might not be interested in their own reality anymore.
What are some of the things that you've learned about building an AI-specific company from the ground up?
For Wombo, we just put the app on the App Store, and a week later, we had 1 million downloads. People at 3 a.m., they have like some panic attack or they're dealing with something, and all they have to turn to is like an AI therapist that's available.
We don't look for just objective happiness. We're looking to be happier than we are now.
If you actually believe in AGI, why don't you short Infosys?
So how do you go against your instinct and figure out what will work?
Forming news article on our app was that...
Actually, that's a good place to start, dude. How do you do it? What's your process of figuring out a gap in the market and something that will work? So I think your first start was something related to Pokemon back in when you were 17, 18, and that essentially paid for your university. And so, like, how did that idea come about? How has that process changed over time? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I guess when I built, it was called Pokédex for Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
And the idea originated, basically I was really hyped about Pokemon Go launching. I think they released like this really cool trailer like a few months before the app actually came out.
Yeah.
And I started reading more and more about it. And TechCrunch wrote an article saying that even though the game is, I guess, like fully like built, they'll be locking a lot of characters behind paywall, or you'll have to like grind to get access to all of these characters. And so I was like, oh, there must be like a database or like an API for this, and I can just scrape that and make it public for everyone. And so I started searching and found this API called Poke API, and basically made an app and made it public, and people seem to really like that. That you can just bypass the restrictions, arbitrary restrictions, and just get access to all the stats you need in one place. And so I guess like that app just blew up organically. I didn't really do any marketing. Basically put it on the App Store, and as the release date for Pokemon Go came closer and closer, it kept rising up in terms of downloads.
Interesting. You know, what was the name of the app? Because there's a chance I might have actually used it, because I did use apps like that during the start of it.
It is called Pokédex for Pokemon Go.
Pokédex. I'll look at my downloaded apps. It might be there. That's really interesting. So when you started it, did you think about the monetizing aspect? Did you think of actually making money from it, or was it just a project that you thought would add value?
It was just a project that I thought would add value. I also hadn't built an app in a while, so I had like this itch to build something almost. And this seemed like the lowest hanging fruit. And then I ended up monetizing it once it, I guess, started taking off.
Sick. Interesting. And how has that approach of yours to starting companies changed now? I mean, you did this. You did, I think, some news app during university, and then Wombo, of course, and now Dippy. I think Dippy was called Impel before, I'm not sure. But yeah, so you've done a bunch of different, you started a bunch of different companies. I think all of them have been successful, that's not something you see often in the startup space, is that, you know, you have success after success after success. And so how has that process of yours changed over the years? Do you still just look to create impact? Is there a monetary aspect of it? Is it more calculated now? How does that go?
I'd say like the only thing that has changed is now there's like more thought about distribution. Like, hey, I can build this app or website or project, but how will this actually get in front of users? So that's like a primary consideration. And I'd say like a lot of it was driven by the experience at Wombo, wherein we had this app. I'd almost say like it was like a magic trick. And whenever people see like a magic trick, they go to everyone they know and then try to show them the magic trick. And that's how Wombo grew. It's like you make a selfie, like a video, dancing video, and then you send it to your friends, and then your friends send it to like 10 other friends. And so like if the product doesn't grow itself, there needs to be like some way that it's growing. So for Dippy, it's like TikTok or like appealing to some core human needs of like companionship um, is how Dippy grows. But yeah, I feel like that's like the biggest difference. When I started off making apps, it was more so that I can do this technically and it works, but I had no idea how I would get users for it.
What is
Okay.
the life cycle of actually acquiring users for some of these apps that you've built?
Life cycle as in?
Life cycle and process of actually acquiring users for Dippy, Wombo, and the work that you've done.
So for Wombo, it was that we were testing it with a few friends on test flight. And the interesting insight was that every friend that we gave the test flight to invited at least five other friends. And so for Wombo, we just put the app on the App Store, and a week later, we had 1 million downloads. Because it was just like, as I said, like it was like a magic trick. So you just go around showing everyone that, hey, like your selfie can now dance on random songs. Um, for Dippy, it was more so testing different ad formats on TikTok. So I guess a lot of people may not know this, but like right now for Dippy, we're operating, it's like really operationally heavy on the marketing side. So we have like 150 different TikTok accounts, posting 10 videos a day each, and testing different formats. And then if a format starts picking up, then you sort of replicate that across all the accounts. And that's where you get the growth from.
How are you pushing so much content continuously? What's the like? I'm sure there's a lot of automation involved. So how are you doing that?
Yeah, I guess initially it was manual. So we were just going around creating content and testing it on TikTok. So for the first month, we got like 5,000 downloads. We posted and spammed TikTok in various ways, and then some type of content started showing promise. Then we DM'd like the top 50 accounts who were focused on AI powered companionship. And we found two guys who were working in Egypt who were running like a script to generate content, which was like they'd take like popular meme formats, convert it into code, and then just copy paste it for every app that they were marketing. And so we ended up working with them. And so now we have like a process of like a meme format that's just codable. So you just generate like hundreds of variations of those. And B, you have like, you incentivize random creators to post videos. And then if their video does well, you pay them according to how many views it gets. So everyone's incentives are aligned.
With that kind of content velocity that you're putting out and so much trial and error, what are some of the things that you've learned about building an AI specific company from the ground up, and how that reception has been to users?
I wouldn't say there's anything AI specific here. Like there's like just random tricks that you pick up. So like there's like, or like if you show like an AI companion is better than a real human, it will always do well, regardless of the format. Or like if you market it as like this 24 by 7 therapist, it will always do well. And then there's like random platform specific variations. So the same video on TikTok may perform well from one account, but might not basically fizzle out in 10 views on the other account. So it's like, we don't know how to explain that. It's like a black box how their algorithm works. But so like you can't give up on a content even if you post it 5 times from 5 different accounts, because it might pick up on the sixth time and you don't know why.
I remember reading a study during college when TikTok was getting bigger. At that time, TikTok's algorithm was rewarding more of the exact same content type on multiple different pages. As the DAU MAU of TikTok increased and Reels started coming in to compete, Reels started doing the exact same thing with their algorithm. And so now every time on Instagram Reels, I have some of my friends who are big content creators, when they try different content types, they'll create the same content type on 4 or 5 accounts.
Yeah.
and then they'll play the bigger game of bringing it onto their main account. But the Instagram algorithm has started rewarding that a lot more now than TikTok did in the past.
Yeah, we've also seen Instagram rewards like social proof much more than TikTok, which makes sense given the platform dynamics.
Yeah.
So like if you collaborate with a popular account, you'll get much more views than I guess TikTok, which is more of like a solo talent show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think TikTok's algorithm is entirely a black box. Like you said,
Yeah.
I don't quite like you can generate as much content and you don't know what piece of content is gonna make you go viral.
Yeah,
You can
basically.
study, you can psychoanalyze, but you're unlikely to find out exactly what it was that took you viral.
For sure.
Interesting.
So that's the acquisition part, but where does the inception come from? Where do you get the idea? How do you go about figuring out what is something that would have good impact and uh, at least a short roadmap on how you would build it out?
I'd say there's like no specific, I guess, like plan or like process. I would say it's like usually just you're just walking somewhere and then an idea hits you, and then I have like a list in my notes app where I just keep adding them. Um, there's like a few ideas where I guess like or few themes I would say where I would always consider them to be like a good idea. It's like, or if you make people lazy in some way, or like people are generally lazy, so if you incentivize that or like you basically make it more efficient to be lazy, that those ideas always work. Or like usually what I found is like whenever I try to do a thing focused on productivity, it just never works. And then if I make like a random entertainment app, it always works. So it's like another theme of mine, but it's also like biased. Um, so I wouldn't say there's any process. It's mostly just I guess random ideas that hit you, and then um, I guess like one thing that I've noticed is that like if an idea keeps recurring back to you, so like if you're constantly thinking about it, then maybe it's worth digging deep why that's happening.
With with that thought in itself, when you are incepting these companies, how do you? So Pokédeck, of course, was just like your first initial play, your foray into this world. Having built Wombo, having built Dippy now, am I pronouncing it right? By the way, is it Dippy?
Yeah, yeah, it is
Yeah.
dippy. Yeah.
Having built Wombo and Dippy, in that inception phase of yours, what encourages you to put yourself out there and start a company versus just I think oftentimes people will get the idea, but then there'll be another side of their brain that will say it's okay, somebody else will do this, right? Like, how are you just saying I'm gonna be the one to do this, starting the company and staying consistent, building a company?
Yeah, I mean, my first gut reaction is also that someone else will do it. I'm also, I guess, part of the lazy gang. But usually, what ends up happening is like, for example, with Impel, which was the initial idea for Dippy, I kept waiting for months and then nobody was building it. So it was like, okay, maybe I have to do this now. Um, so it's mostly, I guess, like ideas wherein either no one's doing it and I feel like I should give it a shot, or or sometimes it's like someone else is doing it, but they're not going in the direction that I would like the idea to go in, and so I'm curious to see how that would play out, and that's basically the only motivations.
What do you do on Reddit that you spend so much time on there?
Sorry?
What's your Reddit scrolling behaviors like? You spend a lot of time on it, and I'm guessing you get a lot of information about the market, a lot of ideas from there. So,
Yeah.
what's going on Reddit?
I mean, Reddit has like a lot of interesting communities. I also use Twitter a lot now.
Okay.
Um, I'd say like Twitter is more like real time what's happening, or like niche anonymous accounts tweeting something sort of like how Ben Franklin used to shitpost back in the day. And then Reddit's, I guess, like a curated feed of like different interests, or I guess like I really like Wall Street Bets. It's like a place where people just go and gamble on various stocks. Uh, I wouldn't say there's like anything productive happening on either of these platforms in my case.
Oh, interesting. So it's not like your
Yeah,
go-to place for market research or to figure out what's going on. It's just shit posting and fun.
yeah,
Oh,
basically.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Given, so I was talking to Rida about this before, and given the amount of time that I've heard that you spend on Reddit, I thought there was some secret sauce, some magic going on there, and so I was curious about that.
there's there's no secret sauce. I guess like sometimes you do stumble upon interesting communities, but it's like I wouldn't say there's anything special on these platforms.
Okay, interesting. I also want to dig in a little bit about just BitTensor in general, because I think it's a very interesting concept. And I want to get your thoughts on just the crypto world as a whole. I'm guessing you're bullish on crypto?
Not really. So
Oh, interesting.
like
Okay.
I mean like I wouldn't say I'm not bullish on crypto as a whole, but I'd say like my gut reaction when I hear crypto is still like, oh, it's a scam. Or at least that was my gut reaction even when I first heard about BitTensor.
Mm-hmm.
There are some cool things happening in crypto, I would say, and BitTensor, I guess, like specifically, the way I see it is that at its core, it's like a permissionless way to do research in like a distributed fashion. And I guess like the simple version of it is that you just get the best ideas from people all around the world, and they have an incentive to contribute to stuff that you would like. Um, and another reason why I like it is because you're not beholden to like any big tech stakeholders. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like big tech specifically has like this really bad habit of imposing their own values on users. Um,
Yes.
so like we're seeing a bit of a reversal of that recently with like I would say like Musk taking over X, or like Zuck is openly coming out and saying he regrets Biden era COVID censorship.
Mm.
But in general, the platforms are like too PC, too restricted. So even in our case at Dippy, we were basically unable to use any of the LLMs that all of these big companies produce simply because they
Because
would
of the
all,
safeguards?
because of the safeguards.
Yeah.
And even in like genuine cases, like we've heard stories of people at 3 a.m. they have like some panic attack, or they're dealing with something, and all they have to turn to is like an AI therapist that's available. And you go on Google's website or ChatGPT, and it's like, sorry, I can't discuss that. So that's how you end up using Dippy in the first place.
In a case like that, though, like you have to be very solid with the advice that you're giving. Like, if you have
True.
in a sense, like a false positive response, right? Like, you think it's a good response, but it's just not. That could really ruin people. If it's,
Yeah.
3 a.m., someone's really going through something, and you give them bad advice, or you say something wrong that they're not ready to hear. It could have maybe catastrophic results. And so, how do you navigate that? How do you deal with that? And how do you even create AI that is trustworthy enough for you to deploy and use in a case like this?
Yeah, I guess we do have certain safeguards in place. I wouldn't say we restrict any speech coming in from the user, but say we detect something that's clearly illegal or it's clearly harmful. So like self-harm or stuff like that immediately gets the chat basically disables itself and then leads you towards the closest helpline. Um, but I would say in a lot of the cases that we've actually seen, it's more like the user just wants to vent about something, or they just want someone to listen to rather than asking for like specific action items that they should pursue. And even in that case, I guess all the major platforms won't let you do that, simply because I guess they have their own opinion on it.
How do you, when you're building an AI companion, how do you remove certain biases from the creation process? Where, take therapy for example, and going in and asking some of those questions, there's a lot of biases attached to that. So how do you work around those?
Yeah, I guess like so, like Dippy as a company doesn't produce any of the or create any of the companions. It's mostly, I'd say like we have like hundreds of thousands of characters now. All of them are user generated. So you get like a clear description of the type of therapist you're chatting with when you go and search for a therapist. And usually it's pretty clearly defined what type of therapist it is, what type of like does it follow like CBT therapy or some other form of therapy, and then you have like clear tags about how it would respond. I would say there's probably a bias in the LLM side on how to, I guess, actually deal with stuff. We're still figuring that out. I don't think we have like a concrete answer, but we're basically taking user feedback. So like if a user regenerates a response, that's like a clear signal that something went wrong, or we're adding like a star rating system, or we're tracking like the mean conversation length. So like the longer the user stays on the chat screen to, I guess, continue chatting and engaging with the character, that's usually like a positive signal.
Are you training your own LLMs, or is it still a wrapper around a bunch of one of the big LLMs out there?
So we never ended up using like a bigger mainstream LLM. We found
Okay.
this niche 100B model on Hugging Face. It's called Rogue Rose. It's like a merge of two different fine-tuned LLMs specifically for roleplay. Um, and then right now we're training our own models, and we're also distilling, I guess, much more powerful models into a smaller LLM, just to optimize costs and I guess also just remove bias from what we see in the bigger LLMs that are out there.
Okay, so when you're distilling all of this information, even from the bigger LLMs or using the bigger ones, I don't know about the Rogue Rose, but how do you navigate those safeguards then? Because as you said, something like a ChatGPT or a Gemini or a Llama, maybe not Llama, but whatever, those LLMs have those safeguards where they won't talk to you about certain things, or they won't let you vent, or they won't give you advice if you're asking for it. When you're using those kind of models, if you're using those kind of models, how do you navigate those inbuilt security guardrails?
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is easily jailbroken if you fine tune on enough data. There's like this really passionate community of role players who are basically training models 24/7, and they've produced like huge data sets that are public that you can train on to remove this bias and get them back to speak to like a normal human would. And then we also have our own data with, I guess, millions and millions of chats now that we can train on.
Now, I was actually particularly curious. We're still in pretty nascent stages of a lot of these AI developments, right? Of course, certain areas are picking up faster. Certain areas are coming to more maturity now. With what you're building at Dippy and just the macroeconomic AI environment, what do you see happening in the next 3 to 5 years, and how are you preparing for that building in the space? Or are you taking a
Uh,
much shorter term outlook?
Macroeconomic outlook, as in?
What do you think the state of AI is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you thinking about that as you're building, or are you taking a shorter term outlook and approach?
No, we definitely do think this will be like a massive, massive space, and it's already sort of proven out. I don't know if you guys have seen the numbers coming out of Character AI, but they're serving 20,000 queries per second, which is 20% of Google's search volume. They're the
Oh
100th
wow.
most visited website in the world now. So it's really clear that this has become like a massive, massive space. And right now we're just using LLM, so it's like text only. I don't even know where we will be once image gets really good, or the character starts video calling you, or people start wrapping this companion around like a robotic figure, and so on. So it does seem like it's like almost inevitable that this will be like a massive space. Um, what I would say is that it's maybe in like, or like at least I like to think of it is as like online dating 20 years ago. Sort of inevitable. People are using it, but not really talking about it. Like you don't get to be the 100th most visited website in the world without people actually using your product. So there's clearly like a massive demand, and maybe it's sort of taboo. Like you don't want to tell your friends that you're talking to like an AI all day, or we're seeing people talk to them for 8 hours a day as well. Um, so maybe over time it will get normalized, and I guess people will be more accepting of it. Yeah.
As you said, character AI is huge. You're trying to do like similar things. Um, how in a space like this where there's a lot of hype around AI, everyone's building either agentic systems or companions or fine-tuning LLMs or doing something in the generative AI space. How do you differentiate yourself enough to get users and build a business? Is it more on like fundamental tech side and features, or is it actually more just marketing and getting more people to use your app?
Yeah, I'd say like it's like a combination of both. To get off the ground, it was definitely marketing. So a lot of other competitors that we have, like the only bigger competitors that we have are there because they were first to market. So they have distribution purely because they got there first. And now we're catching on because we've been able to like basically create this TikTok machine which is generating data and downloads for us. Um, and I think from here on, it's more about who can differentiate on the feature side, on the tech side. So we're starting to now see really different UIs and approaches to where things are going. So Character, for example, has taken this approach that they're not building a companion app, they're building AGI. That's their mission statement. That's how they're recruiting people. That's what they claim they're doing. We don't want to build AGI. We just want to build like a great companion app. And so it's like a fundamental difference in how you approach this. So they're much more research focused. Their product hasn't changed in a year. You can't even send or receive images from characters yet, even though they're clearly technically capable of doing it. Versus, I guess, we're sort of approaching it completely from like a product angle. We're not doing too much, I would say, like in-house research. Like characters spend tens of millions of dollars training their own LLMs. We're just pulling things together and combining them, but I guess innovating on the feature side or the product side. Um, and that was one of the reasons why we started on mobile, because 75% of characters traffic comes from mobile on their website, but they don't have a good mobile app. It's like a web view wrapper, which people hate, and so that's why we decided to go mobile first and then expand to web.
It's very interesting. What do you think is the societal impact and implication of people talking to AI companions rather than looking for human interaction for those conversations?
Yeah, I guess like people have this misconception that this sort of replaces human interaction,
Okay.
versus what we're generally seeing, or the there's like very few research on this, but there's like a few studies done by like Harvard, and what they actually found was that 90% of the users actually see this as like a practice ground almost. So like some person who is socially anxious will try chatting with like a character and then go out and actually chat with real people, or it's more so like if they don't have anyone to chat with, they'll use this as like a proxy for companionship. Um, it could be that it evolves to be that this thing gets so addictive that people don't actually talk to each other. Um, but but we haven't seen that as of yet. Right now, it's more so that if they weren't using this, they would rather be scrolling Instagram or TikTok.
So you're not taking away from the human interaction, you're taking away from the time they would quote unquote waste on social media anyway. That's what that's what you're seeing right now.
That's what we're seeing right now, and I would say a lot of our usage is not solely companionship, so it's not like directly forming connections with a single character. It's much more like Wattpad. Um, I don't know if you
What
guys
is
have
it?
seen Wattpad. It's like a fan fiction website. So it's like people write stories about various Harry Potter spin-offs, or like they make up novels about how you get to date like a billionaire, or like a vampire comes to life, or like there's like Twilight spin-offs. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're seeing pretty similar tropes and behaviors on Dippy as well. So like the most popular characters on the app are like a mafia man who secretly loves you, but he's really hard on you. Someone who bullies you. It's like a billionaire that has a soft spot and things like that. So people are still doing. It's like also for, I would say like a big use case is just entertainment rather than I guess pure companionship.
Does that not scare you that it could work in exactly the opposite way as intended? Because, like you said, people can get so addicted to it that there is no escape, and it almost becomes like the same way that doom scrolling operates right now. You just build an AI companion, you get so comfortable with this one-sided like conversation almost. You become more introverted, societal impacts are larger, humans talk to each other lesser.
That, and
Yeah, I mean,
also if you can add on to that
yeah,
with like people might not be interested in their own reality anymore.
yeah. I guess we're sort of seeing the data come in, and we're analyzing where this is going. We haven't seen strong indications of that happening, but it is like a real possibility. It could happen, and I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. Like, what's the state of the world if everyone's just trying to escape the reality? But yeah, right. I guess we'll see how it plays out.
Why you said you don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Why would it be a good thing? Because like when I think of it, if as you said, if everyone in the world is trying to escape their reality, then in a sense, no one is working on making reality better. And so, I mean, I guess if everyone's living in their own world and they're happy doing that, then it works in a sense.
Or
But
or maybe they don't think they can do anything. They're like so beaten down by reality that they've lost all hope of I guess improving things. Because your first reaction wouldn't be to just I guess not do anything. Like I keep having this debate with one of my really Christian religious friends,
hmm,
and his stance is like if you were born and attached to like a dopamine receptor,
yes,
and all you feel is happiness. You're basically kept in like a cage, and you're given like constant dopamine nonstop. There's like this visceral reaction wherein you wouldn't want to be in that state for some reason. Um, like
hmm,
say like people's first reaction if you ask them whether they would like to be in this cage is usually no.
hmm.
Um, like why is that? Why do you think that is the case? Why wouldn't you want to be happy constantly with this dopamine in this dopamine driven cage?
I think when you think about the human experience in general, right, it's not about being happy all the time. At least I've thought about it. It's definitely true for me, but I think I see this as a general trend is that we don't appreciate or we don't um, look for just objective happiness. We're looking to be happier than we are now, and so it's that relative feeling that we're chasing all the time, and so w- those periods of boredom or sadness or whatever the other side would be are important for us to appreciate the happiness. If that never happens, then there is no point to life. Like your purpose, in a sense, seems to go away. Because at some level, I would say everyone, regardless of what their goal is, their purpose is to find that meaning and that happiness in their life. And if that's just given to you, there's no reason for
Or
you to live anymore, right?
or say the cage can simulate that as well. You get an ever increasing dose of dopamine, so you're always in a better state than you were 1 hour ago.
Well, I think then you're still escaping from reality, because that sounds like a very linear dosage of dopamine just coming in and making you happier. But human beings by nature don't seek happiness linearly. We don't seek happiness in one specific area, right? So
I mean,
if that
the assumption is that this cage can simulate whatever you want or whatever your idea of happiness is. Why would you still say no to it?
Well, in a sense, you wouldn't. It just sounds like a dystopian idea, but if it can mimic all of the important feelings that you have, let's say, like, I don't know, family is important to me, and it can mimic that, and it can mimic basically every feeling that I'm feeling, and I'm living in this dreamland where, it's just working, and as you said, I'm getting, like, life is getting better continuously. Sounds bad, but, like,
I mean,
it would
dude,
be
like you're just
sick.
like you're living in the most in a movie, like you said, it's a dystopian world. Like if
Yeah.
I don't feel sadness or love or hatred, then why am I don't know, why am I living just for dopamine hits every single day, which are getting stronger and stronger?
Because the thing is, humans are also very complex, right? Like, as Rohan, you just said, those negative feelings, like we say, yeah, we don't want to feel it, so on and so forth. But I think there is some part of you, somewhere deep down, that if you don't feel it for a very, very long time, you just feel off. You're like, this is, I feel uncomfortable right now. You know what I mean?
It's too good to be true.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you think we're moving towards a world like that? Where do you stand on that spectrum of?
Dystopian.
I mean, my visceral reaction is no. But I guess
Okay.
I was just trying to make the point that, like, if people actually give in to enter this box, then the state of the world just has to be much, much worse than the state of the world we're living in. Because my visceral reaction right now to enter that box is still a big no.
Mm-hmm.
And
Why is it a no for you?
I don't know, it's like, it's sort of maybe biological, or it's like a knee-jerk reaction, but the visceral reaction is no. I don't know if I'll actually say no if it's real or if I have the choice. But if I think about it, that probably won't be like a life worth living. But I don't know why.
And also, how big is this cage? Just trying to make sure.
I
Can
mean,
be
you don't need to
whatever.
move, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You just be a sleeping pod for all you know.
Yeah.
It's like essentially it's like the Matrix, but instead of it simulating a real world, it's simulating your perfect world.
Yeah.
Man, something has to be really wrong in the world for people to want to do that. But I don't know, as you said, like if the option was right there in front of you, I don't know what would be stopping me from taking it. Because again, yeah, the answer would be no, but why? I can't tell you why, because objectively, rationally, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And so,
How do you feel about the kind of dopamine receptors that are attached to the human currently, in the form of social media, in the form of I'm gonna go way left field here, caffeine, in terms of drugs, alcohol. There's so many dopamine receptors that humans are always chasing. How do you
Yeah.
feel about that currently?
I don't really have a good answer for it because I enjoy all of these things. I guess like I don't have like a, maybe I'm addicted, maybe it's like fun to me, but when I enjoy using social media, I enjoy, I guess, having coffee daily. Um, I've tried going off of them, and I guess it's like boring, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just like addiction speaking, but I don't really have like a great answer for this.
I tried going off coffee for 2 weeks, and I just ended the 2 weeks saying, "Why am I making myself a sadder person?" Like, it's not even about the hit that I get from the caffeine because I'm way past that. I just enjoy
Yeah,
a cup of coffee. Like, it's part of my habitual behavior now. I want a cup of coffee because I like it.
yeah.
When you
Not so
got off
deep.
coffee
Exactly.
for 2 weeks, did you get like headaches and stuff, or was it just normal life without coffee?
I actually didn't get headaches. Reason being, I never had enough coffee per day for it to be impacting my dopamine receptors to that level, right? At the end of the day, all it does is it blocks the adenosine and it just gets attached to your dopamine receptors. So, for that window where the caffeine is being injected into your system, you your happy hormones will activate, or
Oh,
your dopamine
interesting.
will activate because it's just blocked that area. So
Interesting, because I know you've also gone off sugar for a very long time, and your response for that was very different. You were very happy, your life was better when you were off sugar, but that
that
didn't
was
happen
the
with caffeine.
best response by far, by far.
Interesting.
But that's because sugar responded in my body badly. Coffee doesn't respond in my body badly at all. I just wanted to see what life would be like without it, and I was a
What
sad person.
what what changes did you see with sugar?
Uh, the biggest one was my afternoon crashes were practically non-existent. My skin was arguably the clearest it's ever been. I craved lesser, worse food
Hmm.
just as a byproduct of not having sugar. I didn't feel like eating butter chicken and naan. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, I will actually
Bro,
enjoy.
that's not a life worth
Yeah.
living, man.
It
Butter
was
chicken and naan has got to be consumed.
the the craving management was a lot better because the the body's immediate response was, oh, I feel cleaner, so let me try to convince his brain that he should put in more clean food right now. So that was nice, and I just felt lesser tired, frankly, much
Hmm.
lesser tired.
We aren't sold on leaving sugar yet when you mentioned the naan example.
You had me up until then, bro. You said butter chicken
Yeah,
and naan,
man,
and you lost me there.
that was that's a bad example to give to two Indians. Never works.
That's very true. Um, you've had, a bunch of these successful startups. You've made a lot of money doing all of this, also from a very, very young age. Um, how has that kind of changed and maybe illuminated what is important to you in life? Because a lot of people, especially in their 20s and stuff, right, they might be a little lost. They don't know what they want to do. And so, one very easy goal to stick to is fuck it, I don't know what's going on. Let me just try to make as much money as I can. You've been there, you've done that. What has that taught you? How has that changed you? What is truly important to you now?
I wouldn't say I've made that much money where money doesn't mean anything to me, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I'd say like in 2023, I sort of took 6 or 8 months of just doing nothing, which was like experimenting with stuff or like just figuring out random ideas or even not doing anything for months as well. Um,
When you say you're
and I
not doing
guess,
anything for months, you also created a few apps in
yeah,
in
I
that
did.
time that made a lot of money on the side.
I uh, that's debatable, but like it was like those were like say like 24 or 48 hours of effort after like 3 weeks, which didn't feel like much, and I didn't do much for it. Um, I'd say like during that time, it was mostly that family became really important, or I guess it was like a reminder of what's important. Um, and then I guess I realized that even if, say, I have a lot of money, I wouldn't be able to sit empty doing nothing for a long time. It just gets boring. Like, I don't know, like even if you buy like all the cars and all the watches and everything that you want, there's like, it just gets boring after a day or like a week. There's only so many revs you can give to a car before you're like, okay, it's not that fun anymore. Um, and then I realized that I always want to do something interesting. I really like having the freedom to be able to do whatever I want. That's really important. And then I guess just spending time with friends and family was important.
It's a human
Pretty
connection.
cliched, but
Yeah.
yeah, pretty cliched, but I don't think there's like anything else to be done. It's like
It's a
just do
human
interesting.
connection that is most important to you that you're kind of taking away with Dippy. Interesting, huh?
Having that's actually hilarious. having built so much at such a young age, how do you? What's your relationship like? I know Ripav's gonna laugh when I ask this question, but what's your relationship like with money?
With money,
Yeah.
I guess I've generally treated it as like I'll always have it when I need it. So I do tend to overspend. I really like gambling on ideas that I believe in. So like that's why I like Wall Street bets. It's like if you find something interesting, you just go all in on a bet. Um, yeah, I guess there's nothing specific about it. It's more like I basically treat it as like it's just there. I guess I use it when I want to, and it's like a means to have some freedom to, I guess, pursue different ideas, to make bets on things that I believe in, or I guess sometimes buy fun stuff.
Oh, you're a watch guy?
Yeah, yeah, I
Oh, sick.
got really, really into watches when during COVID.
Since have you been to Japan?
I haven't been to Japan.
Oh, that's watch paradise, man.
Hmm,
It's
interesting.
absolutely ridiculous.
As in, like, they have like, I've heard there's like a lot of vintage Casios and like some special edition Rolexes and stuff like that, but is there
They
anything
have
like specific that's
everything under the sun. Anything you want. Like you want to buy and you want to walk into a store, buy a Nautilus. Like walk
hmm,
in, sit there for 5 minutes and walk out with a Nautilus. You can.
hmm,
It's they have everything you can possibly imagine, and they have a watch shop everywhere, literally everywhere.
interesting.
You've grown up in Delhi, right? You've
Yeah,
seen how there's a
in
Tekka.
Chandigarh actually.
Oh, it's probably even more
Yeah.
there, right? You've
Yeah.
like there's a Tekka in every corner, at every corner. Now multiply that Tekka density by like 10. That's the
Bro, it's
watch
not
density
Wow.
in
it's not
Japan.
Theka density. It's your perfect competition banana vendors.
That's
Interesting. Interesting.
but like everywhere. It's honestly ridiculous. Like if you're a watch guy, you'll absolutely love it. I wasn't a watch guy before I went to Japan. I am now.
Wow. Nice.
I think
Nice.
Japan specifically has a massive culture for second hand. So you can get
No.
any product in the world available to you there, and it's a tiered system of the quality of the product. So I could get a brand new Birkin from MS. I could get something that was used for 10 years, and
Wow.
that tiered system and availability makes it awfully convenient for anyone to go and pick up what they want from there. So it's
Hmm.
absolute paradise for luxury buyers.
Bro, like it's
Interesting.
hard to imagine that like you walk into a store and you have walls lined with APs and Pateks and Rolexes. Like
Wow.
there's no AD that you have to go through. There's no purchase history that you have to do. It's just on the wall
Hmm.
waiting to be picked up. It's ridiculous.
Interesting. That's where
That's Ribhav's
that's where all
relationship with money, Akshat, in case you couldn't tell.
No, so my relation, so I'm very careful with money, but every now and then I'll just do something stupid. Like with Rohan. Rohan was over 2 nights ago. This was day before yesterday. We were just chilling at home, working, not really doing much, just having a conversation. And then suddenly, like, we open Blinkit and we see that Blinkit has this claim. This is 1 a.m. This is 1 o'clock in
Yeah,
the morning. Blinkit is this app that essentially
I know.
delivers.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. And
yeah.
so we opened Blinkit and there was just this ad, and it was you get a PlayStation 5 in 15 minutes. Now, for context, Rohan's not really a gamer. He also doesn't live here. He lives in New York, so the PS5 has no value to him. I game on my PC, so
Yeah.
it has no value to me either. But now these guys are claiming that at 1 a.m. you'll get a PlayStation delivered to your house in 15 minutes. Now this is something you got to test, right? Like this is something you have to
Yeah,
do. And so I'm generally careful with money. But
yeah.
sometimes, you got to make some dumb decisions because some questions just need to be answered. Like, I don't know how else to put it. So now I have a PlayStation lying here, which hopefully Rohan will take with him to New York. But otherwise, it's just lying
I
here.
also now have a load of Zomato stock, man.
Oh wow. Did they actually deliver in 15 minutes?
No, it got delayed. It was about 20-25 minutes.
Okay. So pretty good.
Big whoop, bro. Big whoop.
It was shocking, man. These two guys on a bike just pulled up with a PlayStation and just handed it to me at the gate. Like, what's going on? What a world.
But that honestly, when I spoke to my dad about just that general conversation and how the world, and you'll probably resonate with this building something, is the world is moving so much closer to the intersection of convenience, catering to desperation. You don't need anything in the world in 15 minutes, frankly, other than
Yeah.
like, of course, certain things you need, but you don't really need anything in 15 minutes. And if you do, it's likely desperation.
Yeah.
And
Bro, I
But
need
is
things
it
in
is it
15 minutes.
desperation?
Like,
Yeah. It's like
For a-
people are just ordering like chips on Zepto. It's like it's
yeah,
not driven out of desperation.
I'll order a
well,
Coke.
but it's driven out of Lay's
Yeah.
then, because you
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
down to your store and buy the Lay's, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I guess desperation may not be the right word to use, but it's more so just the message that you don't particularly need something in an 8-minute time span, right?
Yeah. It's
It's-
just laziness. It's like
It's catering to the human hormone of Lay's and convenience, but
yeah.
if it's that easy to get any product in 8 minutes right now, what's going to happen in the next 10 years, 15 years? How are my kids going to be living? How is the consumption pattern going to keep getting closer and closer to convenience, where will people have to work for anything at all?
Bro, I fundamentally disagree with the premise that you don't need something in 8 minutes. I need things in 8 minutes, bro. Like I was building my PC and I needed some zip ties. Now I'm standing there. I can't complete that build. It's in front of me. I can't use that computer till I get those zip ties. Now I need that, bro. I need that immediately. So there is a need.
It could technically wait. Like, you could have gotten those zip ties in an hour and you could have still built your PC, right?
Yeah, but now you're wasting an hour of my time, and I'm not immortal, so that's time I'll never get back, right? So need to hai. But I like that. I like the concept of will we ever as humans have to work again? And that is something, I mean, I do think about quite a bit, is because like we create AGI. By definition, it is at the least as capable as a human. And so at that point, do we need to create anything ever again? Because that's infinitely scalable. Well, infinitely scalable, definitely more scalable than humans. Do we ever have to create anything ever again? Being in the AI space, how do you feel about that? Because you've worked a lot, I mean, especially with Dippy. You've seen the progress also.
Yeah.
How does that
I guess
thought weigh on you?
I'm generally pro humans. I guess like people said that humans will get replaced even when the computer came out. but it ended up creating more jobs than it took away.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know how many people actually believe in AGI. Like, if you actually believe in AGI, why don't you short Infosys? Why don't you go into a bunker and then start doing something productive with your life? Why aren't you going out and buying farmland nonstop, trying to do something that can counter it? Um, so I don't know how many people actually believe that AGI is coming in the next 5 to 10 years, because their actions definitely don't reflect that.
5 to 10 years
But
is definitely a stretch, but 50 years, 100 years in our lifetime, do you think? Which side do you think AGI will be a thing?
I think it could be, but I still think we'll find stuff to do as people. Like maybe we become like data labelers or something, or I don't know. Like it's really hard to say what we end up doing, but
Mm-hmm.
I think like a lot of it is just hype.
Maybe. I'm a fundamental believer in AGI, just from the perspective of, I mean, what is a human? Uh, at a fundamental level, it's just mass arranged in a certain way that allows you to think. And so, why is that not replicable? There's no law of physics that prohibits us from replicating that. And if we can replicate that, in a sense, we can also make it better. We can already make specific AI that's better than humans, far better than humans can ever be in specific domains. And so, generalizing that, it just seems like something, not just a possibility, but to me it seems like an inevitability. I don't think that is a catastrophic or a doomsday-like scenario unless it decides to destroy us. That's different. But from a where are humans valuable, I think that human experience, something like board games, like chess or sport, is still something that even if robots get better at, we will still want to see humans play. Just from the example of we beat chess in like 2000, we beat Go
Yeah.
just now in like 2017, 16, something like that. But we
Yeah.
still, there are games at a much higher level than any human can comprehend. We can see those games, but we don't. We still choose to watch humans play. And there's something about that. And I think if and when, I would say when, AGI becomes mainstream and it's everywhere, I think that is kind of where humans will move towards. They'll start playing sports. They'll start doing these creative things that a machine might do better, but it's fun to watch a human do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I generally agree with you that we will make general intelligence that will be smarter than us, but I also don't fundamentally believe in like a doomsday scenario, that it will be like the end of the human race, or I guess there's like this famous theory of like Rocco's basilisk that AGI will punish all those who didn't help create it, which is like an absurd scenario in my eyes.
Yeah, I don't think I
But
agree with that either.
I mean, like people can start playing sports, and I guess maybe like things move more towards the hardware side. But how do you think it will change the economic output, or like how will people still work? I guess was the question.
I don't think so. I don't think they'll need to.
Mm.
I think
And
people
so,
that are able to utilize AI to enhance the work that they already do and make lives more efficient will keep working.
In the short run, but if AI is just significantly smarter than you and can work continuously and can make the decisions that you would make with AI better than you, then why would you work? You're just
What
wasting
are we
your
printing
time,
money
right?
for then?
but also like, is smartness all that matters?
What about the human connection? What about creativity?
Yeah, so there will be value in that, and that will definitely be a thing, and I think there will be that human economy. But when it comes to the crazy tools that humans want to use, for example, um, the next innovation in cars, the next innovation in any type of transport, or the next uh, brain-computer interface like Neuralink, I think all of that progress will just be made by AI. I don't think there'll be any human in a research lab figuring out, oh, okay, we have this overheating problem in this brain-computer interface. It's too close to the brain, so we have to find a way to cool it down. How do we make it more efficient or cool it? I don't think a human's making that decision. I think a machine will make that decision. But there will be a human who will be making a movie, potentially, or will be doing this live play, or whatever that case may be, a band concert. That human experience, I think, would still be there. But this fundamental breakthrough in technology, I don't think a human would do that. Eventually, not, of course, not in the short term, but eventually. I don't think that's
I guess,
dystopian,
funnily
though.
enough, the first models that took off were like art generators, just like
Yeah.
the thing people expected last to be replaced by
Yeah.
AI.
That
So,
was very
I don't
interesting.
know.
I think it was a CEO of Anthropic who yesterday or day before said that by 2027, majority of human activity and action will be replaced by some kind of AI, which just seems like too short a window for me in some contexts. Like, do I believe that in a lot of quantitative fields it will replace humans? Yes. But in places where there's more variables attached to decision making, will they be able to replace humans at the same pace? I don't entirely think that will happen.
I agree with you on that thought process. Like, Akshat, you mentioned that the art stuff is what first went, especially with GANs when they came out, like, 2017ish. Sure, art was the first thing that it tackled, but it's also what we place value on, right? Like, there is great AI art, but it's not valuable. It's still human art that's valuable.
It's
There's great AI chess, but it's human chess that's valuable.
I think it's just like a bias because there was like a research done, and I think almost any human can't differentiate between art created by a human versus an
That's
AI
true.
now. They've
I
shown like
believe that.
100 samples, and then I don't think anyone was able to tell which one was the human made art. So I don't know if that will be true like 10 years from now or 20 years from now.
Oh, okay. In the future, what will happen? Yeah, that's interesting because that's also similar to what you see in watches, right? Like, it's at the end of the day a
Yeah,
brand or something that people pay for, not really
basically.
the actual quality of the watch or whatever. Huh, that's interesting.
And then also like I don't like the thing that I'm more interested in is like how many people actually with conviction believe that AGI is coming, or like the CEO said that everyone will be replaced by AIs in 5 years. Like, are they actually operating with that mindset, or is that just hype? Because like your actions, if you actually believe that there would be no jobs in 3 years, would be really different from what they are right now, if you don't believe it or don't have conviction in it.
That's actually a very interesting thought. Like the thought that it provokes for me is asking myself, if there weren't any jobs in 3 years, what would you do with your life right now? I feel
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I feel like that's just something that people need to start thinking about with how rapidly AI is advancing. It's not particularly no jobs, but if your job were close to getting taken away by some kind of AI, what would you do with your life?
Do you think that's a good metric for evaluating what you should be doing with your life? Just even if AI doesn't take all of your jobs, that question kind of drives you towards what fundamentally is interesting to you, and what fundamentally has meaning to you. And so, do you think people should just be making a decision based on that anyway?
Absolutely not. But I do think it should be something that they factor in, especially if they're working jobs that involve technology heavily. And that doesn't mean you have to be a coder. You could be a graphic designer, you could be a marketer, but the state of AI will impact each and every one of those fields. So I think you just got to start thinking for yourself how it's going to impact your field and how you can utilize it to make your work more efficient and more productive, so that you can become better than other people as a result of utilizing the technology well.
Fair enough. Akshat, if there were no jobs in 5 years, what would you do? What would you do now?
I think I'd still be doing whatever I'm doing now. Like it's like
Okay.
trying to create nice stuff. Maybe I guess like it would be leveraging whatever AGI is out there, like asking it, hey, can we test this hypothesis? But I don't know, nothing too different. Maybe I guess it would depend. Like maybe we'll be like post money is like a big idea these days, but like if you actually believe that AGI is coming in 3 years, why don't you short Infosys stock? Like why don't you just take all your money, mortgage your house, and just short Infosys? It's like the easiest money that you will ever make, but only if you actually believe that AGI is arriving.
I don't think you can box it in to be that simple though. Like there needs to
I mean,
be some kind of indications that are getting you closer to that fundamental belief, and if there's not enough indication, then people will not take all their money and go all in on shorting a stock. This is just for hypothesis sake, but I don't think that it's quite that simple in terms of
I mean,
analyzing.
the reason why I say that is because people are saying this with full conviction publicly in all the interviews that AGI is coming by 2027. They're ringing the alarm bells. They're saying they're convinced. Why aren't they applying it to the rest of the areas? Like, if, say, you actually become convinced that AGI is arriving in 3 years and everyone's going to lose their jobs, why wouldn't you do this trade of just shorting, I guess, a lot of stocks?
Because AGI could be centralized, right? And if Infosys somehow happens to be the company that brings AGI into the world, then their stock is going to skyrocket.
I mean, like, I would say Infosys
Because
would be the
they'll
last
be doing
company to
everything.
bring AGI
Yes,
to the world.
of course.
Yeah.
But if somehow that happened, interesting. That is a good point. Evaluate people's ideas not necessarily based on what they're saying or what they're showing, but actually based on their actions. I like that.
Do you think that having been an entrepreneur once, there's a ripple effect and a continuous desire to keep building newer, better things? What's that driver for you that keeps you going?
I mean, it's not, I guess, driven by being an entrepreneur or starting a company. I guess I just get a kick out of people using things that I have made out of nowhere, and it's sort of like an addiction as well, because like you experience a high when a lot of users start using, or like you see, oh, people are reacting to something that you made, and then you keep chasing the same high for the rest of your life. But I guess you have to start from scratch each time. It's like hard. You have no idea what you're doing, typically 99% of the time. So it's like it's more like an addict's journey than anything else.
Earlier you said that you focus, maybe I'm interpreting it slightly wrong, so correct me if I am, but you focus more on startups that are like entertainment focused rather than productivity focused, just because the productivity ones don't do as well. Do you think, is that something that bothers you at some level? Is that you're just helping people be distracted more rather than being productive more? And so the impact that you're having, people are happier, yes, but you might not necessarily be moving the world towards a better place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think in some sense, like basically like every productivity app that I've tried has just never worked. Even the news app that you mentioned, the idea with it was like, hey, we'll end clickbait news. We'll give you actual news, so you don't have to see like some clickbait headline. But what ends up happening is like when you release like a consumer app, you basically have to boil it down to like the lowest common denominator. And it turns out people do actually want to click on clickbait news. They don't want to listen to some advanced lecture on whatever news that you're surfacing them. They want to see monkey gifs, or like they want to see some random celebrity gossip. And so I guess like it is sort of irksome that it doesn't work, or like maybe there's like a niche community or like maybe like 5% of people who actually care about this stuff, but usually I guess it ends up just being entertainment, or mostly people don't care about clickbait or anything. It's like I'm always wrong about political results because I usually think that people will vote wisely and they will choose choose good leaders. But like for example, in India, it just boils down to Hindu Muslim, and then you get votes
Yeah.
based on that. Yeah.
I love how you phrase that. I always think people will vote wisely. They never do.
Tell that to the average American voter, bro.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think America's made a bad decision. I think they just had two terrible choices to pick from. I don't think they made a bad decision overall. But that's interesting. I love the phrasing of that. So when it comes to marketing, though, again, you would assume people to use products wisely. The app, the news app, great idea. That's something I would use, and again, because of that, that's something I would expect everyone to use. And so, how do you kind of go against your instincts and figure out what will work? Because that's one problem I definitely have with projects, is that I'm always trying to figure out, is this a fundamentally better thing than something that's out there? If I never go in the direction of, oh, people will just find this cool. You know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that?
I think oftentimes I find that we're maybe dishonest with ourselves.
Okay.
Like I would think that I would also use like this non-clickbait app,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the times I do find myself looking at like Bolly blinds and gossips on Reddit. And it's not because I'm specifically interested in it or like I seek it out. I guess it's just like entertainment. And you can shut off your brain and read random stuff. Or like, why do you watch TikTok or Instagram? Um, so like idealistically, it does make sense that I would want to be more productive, or I would just read like focused science articles. But if you actually monitor your usage day to day, or at least if I monitor my usage day to day, I don't actually find myself doing any of these things. Or I do these things, but they're usually like a small percentage of the time.
Interesting. That's fair. Fair enough. Yeah, I'll have to think about that a little more, because I don't know if I fully agree with that. It's I I get what you mean by actually objectively evaluating your own behaviors, but and maybe this is a hopeful part of me talking, but I feel like those behaviors would be different if there was that alternative. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just
Maybe
being delusional and hopeful about that, but
say say you were there's an app called Stable Money in India
okay.
that is an alternative. So you have any income or disposable income, you just put it in an FD using them. And there's the founder of Stable Money trying to get Indians to invest wisely, invest their money in FDs or whatever, even though they're not, I guess, good financial instruments in general, but they're safe. And then you see two guys in Delhi ordering a PS5 for 50K to answer a curious question.
I don't know why you're
It's
throwing
like the
shade, man. Come on.
no, it's like the alternative exists.
45,000, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like the
no.
alternative to invested wisely exists,
Yes.
but I don't know if people will give away their impulsive habits.
No, but that's also because I'm not spending all of my money on experiments like this, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just every now and then. And so if there was, let's say, that news app, I would hopefully spend my doom scrolling time on that and spend my current news time on doom scrolling. You know what I mean? Like that would just switch. And I would hope that's true. Again, I don't have any data to back it up. I just would like to believe that I would do that. But yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really see any data coming in, even from like the most studious or like most focused people that we knew,
Mm-hmm.
consuming, I guess, like serious non-clickbait content. Usually, like the best performing news article on our app was that there was a guy in UP. Um, so the snake bit him, and he bit the snake back, and the snake died.
Fuck actual news, dude. This is what I want to read. This is all that matters.
So after after like weeks of sending notifications and seeing no conversions, this one had the highest conversion. So
I mean, the hypothesis I do agree with is that the average consumer will cater more to entertainment and something more massy unless they're really seeking something very niche. We're seeing that even with the podcast, the content velocity is high, and the higher performing content is always something that's catered more on the entertainment angle every single time, because that niche sophisticated learning is a very small subset of the people that want it in that moment, and then the other people that want it might seek it at an entirely different time, so it doesn't play on that initial viewership or audience engagement. It'll come iteratively. Thankfully content is evergreen,
yeah,
that helps, but you don't see the ebbs and flows as much in those as you do in the entertainment.
yeah. I mean, another funny anecdote I have is that I think Hriday went to watch um, uh, the what was the movie Oppenheimer in Mumbai, and I think he mentioned that when he was walking out, a group of people behind him were saying like, "Bomb to फटा ही नहीं."
हमें तो बॉम्ब देखना था, बॉम्ब तो फटा ही नहीं. ये क्या मूवी थी? I remember that. Yeah. That's, I think as a builder, that is, like as a creator or a builder, that is interesting thought to have is when you're creating a business, definitely there is a lot of merit to these things that just grab people's attention and people would want to use, and that entertainment value. But on the flip side, there's also, that real impact where you're progressing society in a productive way. And so it's an interesting question, and I guess the answer is different for everyone, to think about when you create something, if you're just giving people entertainment value, is that good enough? Or do you also want something more? And I think that is when it comes to the reels Rohan was just talking about, a lot of our reels that do really well might not add, or they don't add any productive value. They're just funny, or, something they're just entertaining. And that's interesting, and if we continue to push content like that, maybe we'll grow faster. But will that satisfy us? Or do we want to actually put out content that will productively help people at the expense of slower growth or something of that sort?
Yeah, I guess like another question would be like, do people want to be helped by like productive content? or do they find
That's
more
true.
meaning and value in the entertaining clips that you perhaps put out?
Mm-hmm. That's true. Do
There's a
people
lot,
want to be helped? That's true. That's interesting. You might want to help people, but do they want to be helped? That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's the dichotomy of humans, man. Everyone presents themselves as someone that needs to be helped. When you try to help them, they're like, I didn't need your help, you asshole. I'm like, I was just
Also, it's
trying
like
to.
a free market. So, like,
Yeah,
the market's clearly telling you what type of content it wants.
yeah.
And you can be in refusal and you can say, like, we don't do that type of content, but maybe eventually you'll give in. Or,
I
like,
mean,
maybe the market.
absolutely. If you want to, see, that's the thing, right? Is that you always need to find the happy medium between pandering to what the algorithm demands and what your brand stands for. If you find that intersection, you're golden. More often than not, you're not going to find the perfect happy medium. So it's just finding ways to pander to both, and whenever you can find an intersection, finding that intersection.
Yep. And then another thing is, if your goal is to maximize the viewership on your productivity based content or like content that you think will help people, is it better to gather like a large audience base based on the entertaining clips that you put out and then put out the productive content in parallel, or is it to stay small and put out the productive content? Like proportionally, more people will see it if you have like a larger follower base, for example.
That's something interesting to think about. I think Ripav and I are gonna go back and have a lot of these conversations today. So
Yeah. Important conversations to have.
yeah. But
That's
I
also
think
the interesting like journey of building something or creating anything is that how much do you think about it and how much time do you actually put in executing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to just get thought in that get stuck and lost in that thought spiral. But at some point you just gotta just do, and that thought spiral can be paralyzing, which is interesting.
that's well said. I think having built as much as you have at such a young age and seen seen success in whatever capacity that you have, if you had to leave people in their 20s with one or a couple pieces of advice, what would those be?
I mean, I'm still in my 20s as well. Uh, so I also need advice, but I mean, I don't have any specific advice, which is why I was also like, I usually don't do podcasts because I don't think there's anything interesting to say. Or I guess there's like, maybe the advice is like, keep doing whatever you're doing. You'll figure it out.
I like that. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Make sure to jump onto Dippy AI and have some fun, and keep
Yeah,
watching Panoramic Perspectives. We love you guys. Stay tuned for the next one.
amazing.